So if our goal is to create an e-commerce site, one of the first things we want to do is create some kind of products route. So what I've got is I've ended up doing an FSG command to create this food store. I've done my npm install. And if I go over here, I've actually started the application. And so if I go, one of the things that I can do here is I'm going to use Postman. And let's go ahead and I'm going to set up a tab for API products, which doesn't exist yet. So we'll end up getting not found. Let's go and actually create this route. Before we create the route, one of the things that I think will make our lives a little bit easier is that we have this seed file here. And if we run the seed file will go through and sort of blow out everything in our database. We see this force true, and it'll end up seeding the users. So if I go over here and inside of another tab, I say node seed, I'll see that I'll get my 2 users here. Well, let's pretend a little bit that we have products. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start, and again, I'll try to do this to really have minimal file changes before you could start testing things out to see if things are working. And again, we're sort of looking at just getting a minimum viable product in terms of being able to create a shopping cart. That's what we're going for eventually. So if I run this again, I'll get an error because this model hasn't been defined. And one of the things we could do here is that if we look at FSG, we'll see that pretty much everything is going through this index file. This index file is actually loading the models, and it's exporting the DB here. So we really want to have something like this. Product. And if we go over here, this will be product. And if we go to our models, we could go over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, call it product. And the user model's a lot more complex. This is going to be a lot simpler. So again, we need our DB object. This is allowing us to define things. And we'll go over here and we're going to define product. And we'll go over here. And the only 2 things that we're going to need on a product are going to be a name. And we'll also do a price. So we'll make this a float. And we'll go over here. And I'm going to get rid of a lot of this other stuff. I don't really need any of these instance methods. I'll keep these here just in case I end up adding some. I don't need any hooks. And I don't need this other stuff that's here. So right now all I have here is my product, which is being created here. It's being loaded here. And here's my product. And let's take a look and just go back and try to run this command again. And that should end up running. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the seed file. So now I have my product model here. And we've got this seed users. Let's go over here and we'll also create a seed products. Again, just by a little copying and pasting here just to get this done. So we'll say seed products. Let's create 3 products. So let's say we'll have a name. Foo's a pretty good name. And let's give this a price. And let's, just so we're dealing with some sort of real world numbers, we'll say this is going to be $3.99. And let's do a little copying pasting here. We'll take bar. Bar could be $4.50. And we'll also have one more of these. And this is going to be Baz. And this will be $8.75. And we'll specify that this is going to be creating products. and we'll say products.map. Product. And we'll say product create. Product. And we'll say promise.all creating products. So now when this runs, we've got our seed users, and then after this, we'll say we're going to then go and we're going to seed our products. Again, this is just some code to get some data into our database. We've got the seed users. Now we've got the seed products. And let's run that, and we should see that our products will end up getting created. User product is not defined, so I probably have a misspelling. Line 44, creating products. This is going to be just product, and try this one more time. And so here we could see that we've created 3 products and our 2 users. And so we're sort of on the way of going in, and we now have a model to work with, and now we could go and we could end up setting up our routes. So we still don't have our route defined. Again, we want to have API products. Let's set this up. And again, just so we don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel here, we could go in, we could look at our application. We've got our different routes that are here. These routes are being loaded from actually within our app, but then it calls routes, and you see that we have our members routes that are here. So we want to have something like this, but this is going to be products, and we want to require products. So we'll take a little bit of a shortcut here, and what we'll end up doing is that we will go to our routes folder, and I'm going to copy this, rename it products, or name it products, and we'll go over here, and this is our router for our members, which just basically is a way to test out whether or not we can sort of lock down a route with this ensure authenticated. Probably should move this into another area because we're probably going to be reusing it. We don't need this here because the products route is going to be available to everybody. So I'm going to take this out, and just to see that this is working, again, this is middleware to prevent users, non-users to see this. We don't need it. Let's put a next in here. And let's go and get rid of all this stuff. And so let's just say response.send. And I'm just going to send an empty array for starters just to see that we could go and get this to work. And if this ended up building properly, and this actually shouldn't be a post anyway, there should be a get. And if we do that, we should see that we're getting back an empty array. Let me make that a little bit bigger, right? So here we're just getting back an empty array. Let's go back here and let's modify this. And what we're going to do here is we're going to need to get our products object. So here we've got to go up a couple of different levels here, right? So we're going to be going up from here to our routes, 1, 2, 3 to our server, and then down to DB. And so we should be able to do something like this. Require .. and then we're going to say DB, and that's going to be our DB object. And we'll say product equals, and once you have that DB object, you could specify a model, and it's the product model that we're going to end up getting. Let's just make sure that this doesn't blow anything up. And doesn't blow anything up means that it ended up finding that model. And what we'll do here is we'll say product, find all, put a then here. This gives us our products, so name it accordingly. And we'll say response.send products. And again, since we're doing something that's hitting the database, and just in case we have a problem, we're going to do a catch, and we'll specify next. So now, if we run this, we've got our 3 products, which are showing up from the back end. So where we now have our product route, so we could start to think how we're actually going to implement this now on the client side. And that's the next thing we'll end up taking a look at. Again, we haven't even opened up our app yet. Could have written some tests to do some TDD with this, but this is just a sort of a quick way of showing you how you can end up adding a model and start setting up a route for it. So at this point, let's set up a way for our users to see these products. And one thing that you want to do here, if you're using FSG, let's see if I make sure I don't have this thing running twice, which I don't think I do. Let's see. One of the things that you want to do is that there's a gulp task which is going to manage your JavaScript files. Just to sort of show you this, if I say npm start, and we'll go and open this up in a browser. Let's go over here, and we'll specify localhost 1337. I'm going to go over here, and I'm logged in because I was testing this out earlier, so I must have had a cookie on there. So I've got these 3 links up top. I want to put a link for products, and what I'm going to do in order to do that is I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to go to the browser. And so underneath our directives, there's a navbar directive. Navbar directive is basically just looping over these items and creating links for them. Each of these links has a state and a label. It's pretty simplistic. And so I'll go over here. I'm just going to modify this. I'm going to change this to products. And I'm going to change this to products, even though this state doesn't exist yet. And let's just see what happens here. So I'm going to get rid of this route. I'll keep this one in here just for the moment, for the sake of argument. So we'll go over here. Notice that nothing changed. And the reason why nothing is changing is that if we end up looking at where we're getting our JavaScript files from, what's happening is that there is a JavaScript file. We could actually look at our source code too, but if I reload this, I'll see that basically we just have this main.js file. If we looked at this, we would see that this is where our Angular app is. It's being loaded, and it's actually being created in a gulp task. That's why within our application, this public and our main.js file aren't actually included. They're actually compiled from these 2 sources. So what I really want to do is I want to basically build my scripts again. So one of the things that I could do here is that if I open up another tab and I say gulp, I think it's build. Now let's take a look at it. Let's actually see what it is. So if we go over here, and I'm going to open up my gulp file, and let's do a search over here. So we've got this build.js, which basically runs through a bunch of steps here. This is actually controlling the order, and it's going to end up writing things out in that public directory. Well, let's see if there's just a standard build task. So if I go over here and I say gulp build.js, it should end up running that task. And if we do that, and I go back here, I should be able to go over here and see the products. Okay. Again, this route is not going to end up working. And the reason why the route's not going to end up working is that we don't have this state for products. So let's fix this up. And what we'll do over here is that we're going to go to our browser. And let's go over here and so one of the things I'm going to do here is that with FSG, all the different states are set up in here. So if I was to go and look at these different areas like our about.js has our state. I'm going to actually just set up a config file. I find it a little bit easier to do this. So I'm going to create a config.js, and I'm going to say app.config. And again, just to do as little as possible, especially when you're working on the front end. All I'm going to do here is going to create this state. So state provider dot state, and this is going to be products. Our URL is going to be /products. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to put a template here with the string products. And again, I'm going to have to run my gulp build.js. And I can get this running in the background so it watches for changes. So now if I do this, and I click on products, I should see products show up here. Let's just modify this a little bit. Let's change this to a template URL. And we've got a route set up for our browser. So I'm going to say /products, products, HTML. And I'll go over here. Right now, if I reran this, actually, it would be fine. I've got to do my gulp build.js. And if I just run the standard gulp test, it'll actually watch those files in the background. So let's rerun this. Now if I do that, it'll tell me that it can't find this products.html file. Let's go over here and create that. So it's important to realize when you have to build that stuff up. Now when I just add this HTML file, I could go over here and put in products.html, and that error should end up going away, which it doesn't seem to be doing. Let's take a look. I think it's not going away because I'm missing my JS tag here. That's the actual route. And of course, I've got to build this again. So what we'll do is we'll actually keep that task running in the background. There's a watch that's in there. So if I just run gulp, it'll run a bunch of tasks, and it'll end up watching that folder and rerun the files. So now, let's just say, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay in doing that. But now it's actually not breaking, and if we go and put something in this products file, this will end up showing up. So we've got a simple route. Now our next thing to do is to actually wire up the products API to it. So we're going to want to have, we look at this config, want to actually do something a little bit differently here. Let's actually do a resolve. Again, remember that resolve is just an object. We'll go over here, we'll do products. And we'll keep it simple. I mean, eventually we could set up a products factory. This is not normally the place that I would do this, but we know that we have a HTTP object, and we could do a GET. We know we have this route called products. And what we could end up doing here is doing a then. And this is, again, it's important to remember, this gets us a result, not our products. And what we could do is we could say return result.data. And then we'll end up having our products. And here's our resolve block. And let's just, again, we'll put a simple inline controller here. And we'll specify that we have a scope. And now we're going to get our products injected here. And we'll say scope.products equals products. I forgot my S. Let's put that on here. And then let's just take a look and see if we get this to show up. So if I go back to my products here, just to see if this is here, let's put it in a pre just so maybe it looks a little better. And this should give us our products. So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to let the user add these products to a shopping cart. So what we'll end up doing here is we're going to talk about the concept of actually creating line items to make our life a little bit easier. And what we'll do is we'll set it up so that we'll end up looping over each of our products, and we'll create a line item object for each of our products. So when we end up giving the user the option to purchase something, we're going to be dealing with this concept of line item. So let's just see what this is going to look like. I'm going to create a table here, and I'm going to give it a class of table. And we'll go over here, and this is going to be, I have 3 columns here. This is going to be product. We'll have price. And we're going to allow them to specify a quantity. And we're also going to have a button where they can end up adding this to their cart. So that'll just be empty. And so if we ended up doing that, here's our table. Let's actually just wrap this around so we have a little bit of a border. And now, if we look at this, we go back. I have a little bit of a border here, look a little bit nicer. So what we're going to do here is that this doesn't exist yet, but we'll have something like table row, and we'll say ng repeat, and this is going to be line item in line items. These are going to be basically line items that they could create. We're going to have this concept of a cart, and a cart is going to be a type of order, and an order is going to have line items, and even though these things don't exist yet, they will. And we'll go over here, and here we'll specify that this is going to be the line item product name, and we're also going to have a price. And we're going to use a filter that comes with Angular for currency. And we'll just put an empty TD tag here for the moment. Again, none of these exist. Angular is not going to end up blowing up. It just won't do anything. It doesn't know what the line items are. And we'll go back here to our config. And what we'll do here is that instead of putting products on the scope, we're going to say scope.lineItems. And so this is basically the idea of composition, where what we're going to do is we're going to take our products and we're going to end up mapping them. And what we'll return is a new object. And so for every product, we're going to create a line item, and we'll assume that if the user wants to put them in the cart, we'll start off with a quantity of 1. So we'll have a product of product, and we'll have a quantity of 1. So now, if we go back to our products, this is going to be the line item's product's name and price. And what I forgot to do here is we need to go and make sure that we put this, and it's not line item, it's line item, so it was on our scope. Right, we're basically just transforming this array of products. We're getting a new array of line items, where the line item is composed of a product and a quantity. Okay, now let's set up the quantity as well. So this is going to make things just a little bit easier for us. And what we could do here is we could specify that this is going to be an input. And we could actually give it a type of number to make sure they only put numbers here. And we're going to use our ng model. And this is going to be the line item, and it's going to be the quantity. So now if we went back here, we would see a box with 1. Let's actually give this a class so it looks a little bit nicer. And we'll say class is going to be, this is all bootstrapped, form control. And so we'll get our quantity here, and let's add a button. And so this is going to be a button. Let's give this a class of BTN primary. It'll be a blue button, or whatever the style is that's set up for this. And we'll go over here and we'll say add to cart. So now we've got this, and if we go over here and we'll say ng click, and what we'll specify here is this is going to be create line item. And this is going to be a line item that's going to end up going into the user's cart. We'll start off by dealing with a logged in user. Then we'll see how we're going to deal with a user who's anonymous. So we specify we're going to end up creating the line item. And again, we're going to want to put somewhere on our scope here. And again, as this gets bigger, maybe we pull this out like this, and we could pull this thing out. And we could go over here, and we could say this is going to be products control JS. And just by pasting this in, we could specify app dot controller, and just fix this up. And this will say is going to be products CTRL. Here's our function, and here's our scope. Our products are going to end up getting passed in here. And let's just take a look. I think either I'm missing something here. Let's move this over. And let's save it to see if I have any linting issues here. So I sure do, right? Number of things that it doesn't like. Here's my scope. Dot line items. Here's my map, and I can see what I'm missing right here. This is going to be this. So once I end up doing that, now I should be able to come back to my config file and then just get rid of everything up here and specify that my controller is products control. And it'll end up finding that. Again, as you're building things out, you can end up setting this up. And so now, if I go back to my products control, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put on my scope, create line item. This gets passed in the line item that you want to create. And just to see if it exists, I'll say console.log line item. And so again, sometimes there's a delay in this getting built, but if I do that, I'll see the line item that I want to create. I have a product, and I've got a quantity. Let's just do one other thing here. So let's just go over here. I mean, if the user puts in 0, I want to make sure that this ends up getting disabled. And there's some fancier things you could do, like if you had information about the numbers in stock or something along those lines. But what we'll do, just to keep things simple, what we're going to do is we'll specify that ng disabled, and we'll specify that if got this on the wrong one. And we'll say this is going to be disabled if the line item dot quantity is less than 0. And we'll actually say less than or equal to 0. ng disabled. So now if we do that and we go to 0, or we get rid of that, we'll see that's disabled. Or if we tried to put in a negative number, it would get disabled. Again, people could put in fractional numbers, and we can end up fixing that at some point. But right now, not terribly worried about that. So again, the big takeaway here is that just to make our lives easier, because what we're going to eventually end up doing is that we're going to wire this up, and we're going to have some sort of cart service, which is going to let us add products to our cart. But before we do that, we're going to have to create the cart. But still, we were able to, create our back end for our products and set this up. And so that's sort of taking us in the direction we want to go in.